Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hope you're doing well. So, Squid Game Season 3, Episode 1, Keys and Knives. I have dug into Squid Game because I felt like it's important to analyze the symbolism, the allegory, the metaphors, the sort of unique storytelling going on within this series. And, as you know, there are lots of children in middle school, high school. It's everywhere, and you can't really avoid it, in a sense, at least in where I live in California. And my eldest had questions, what's it about? And I wanted to be able to not just give her a brief overview, but talk about what's the underlying meaning. Gambling debts, the viciousness of what people will do for money, what life lessons can you take away from that, and so on and so forth. So I feel, as a Muslim, it's important to dig into this kind of stuff. And we know, as Muslims, there's lots of hadiths that talk about not dying with debt, and you should repay your debts. And gambling is haram. And no matter how much wealth you have, you will be judged by your deeds, and you cannot bribe your way into paradise. And the emphasis on materialism and minimalism in the series, ethical codes versus greed, there's so much to unpack. So I want to continue to do that. So, Season 3, which really should have just been Season 2, to be honest with you, but there did shenanigans. But the player 246, who was part of the rebellion, gets shot by Soldier 11, the dad of the sick little girl who's quite adorable. Soldier 11 is a woman from North Korea. She was the bunny at the park, and player 246 draws caricatures, and he entered the game, from my understanding, to be able to pay for the medical expenses concerning his daughter's illness. So, already there, as an American, you can relate to that. Especially since Trump just passed his big, beautiful bill where he cut health care for Medicaid so many people, okay? America, if you look this up, one of the top reasons for bankruptcy is medical expenses. So a lot of Americans can relate to this, and it's a tense subject because if you look at Denzel Washington also did like a movie where Don Q something where his kid needed a heart transplant and funds were lacking. Even in Breaking Bad, Walter sells meth in order to pay for his cancer treatments. At least that's what he starts out, and then he starts to enjoy it, and But the point is that medical expenses push people to extremes. And this is fascinating in American culture, how the Christian Republicans are the number one groups who really fight against that. They're not really into people getting health care. Now, she tells him, if you want to live, close your eyes. She does shoot him, but she's going out of her way to kind of make sure he survives, and I believe she's doing it for the sake of the child, because she knows the child will be an orphan. What's surprising to me is, why wouldn't she just adopt the little girl if she knows the dad's gonna die? I wondered why they didn't go with that angle instead, but maybe South Korea has different laws or something. But she helps him, and so that's like a reconnecting scene, because we know in episode 1, during red light, green light, we start to see her recognizing him, right? Now, she does quite a lot for him, so I really enjoy that arc. The next part is Sung-Yoon is delivered back to the room in a box coffin. You know how they have the coffins where they make it look like a little present, Now, it's odd how they wrapped it because it looks like a cross on it. So I was like, I don't really like the Christian iconography there. Because the it goes like this, the ribbon, and then towards the chest area there's like that where the ribbon goes looks like a cross present. So I was like, I get a lot of American symbolism around graveyards involves crosses, but the black box is simple enough. You don't need to put some Christian stuff in there. But the fact that they delivered him back in there, but he was alive, I think is also potent. Because, like, hey, you thought he was dead, but he's not, he's alive. And Sung-Gyun's mission completely failed. The games will continue. And it's almost like putting him in the box instead of dragging him in. It's sort of like, hey, you had one foot in the grave, but we spared you. And you see people come to him, the trans, the old lady, and her son, like, hey, Mr. Seong, you okay? And you can see that people cared about him. But also, the other players were quite surprised. Like, is he dead? Because, he led this rebellion. And the black and pink is something that you see throughout the game. So when you get your card, like when the players win their prize money, it's like black and pink. The soldiers' uniforms pink with a black mask, black hands, black gun. You see a lot of that color keep coming up. And what's interesting is that the coffin colors are they look like that, but when they're being cleaned up, it's really the soldiers who kind of see that, and then they go into cremation. So I always found that interesting, how they have a sort of pageantry around the corpse collection, and then how they're boxed up. The rounds of voting continue, obviously. Player 456 asks, though, why did you let me live? Why didn't you just kill me like everyone else? And that shows how low he feels, because he knows his mission failed. So that sting of defeat and knowing you're the last one standing can really edge off some people. And I wrote, because it makes the VIPs more entertained, because they will get to see how other players get suspicious of his motives, and he will feel his failure and suffer with that mental anguish, so prolonged suffering. Knowing you're the only one who made it out, and you're the one who led everyone to their death, especially your good friend Jungbei's death, well, you lose your credibility. People are skeptical now of you. He had good intentions going in. He wanted to stop the games. But it didn't work. And at this point, he doesn't know it was Daeho's fault for not delivering the rounds. Okay, so he feels an immense weight upon his chest. And remember, if he would have just blasted off Sung-Gyun, the frontman, if he would have done that, the VIPs wouldn't have been as impressed. And he wouldn't have had such a glorious death. So you can see a sort of relationship of understanding almost being formed with the front man and with Sung-Gyun, our main character. And I thought that was quite unique because they handcuffed him to the bed frame, and they seem to, the VIPs and the frontman, they seem to really want to keep him going and engaged in the games to see what happens, because it was the first time anyone had ever gone back. Now, player 100, the old man, he chastises Sung-Gyun and really kind of proves exactly what the frontman was getting at, right? He mentions that, hey, you got people to join the little rebellion, and you got rid of those ex-voters who wanted to leave all at once, and then players 226 and 336 join in the mockery of Sung-Gyun. So you can already see how the front man he's very well aware of the psychology of the players. And that also comes up when he says to the VIPs to keep the baby alive as a player in her mother's stead. Not to cancel out 222. So, since we know the frontman played in the games, and that the original player one, the old man who was, shot caller, took a liking to him, well, guess what? We know that he is able to read people really well. And remember, in Season 2, as Player 1, the front man, and Sung Gi-yeon are bonding, he seems very well aware of the dark side of human nature. Whereas Sung Gi-yeon seems to be sort of, I don't want to say naive, but he's less real. He's more trusting, more blind. They're almost like the opposite of each other, So it's not surprising that the frontman would want to keep player 456 alive so that the VIPs, as they're watching the games, can see the drama and watch how the personalities unfold. Because knowing that you riled people up to go on a mission and that it failed, completely flopped, they're all dead, and that, they're going to be displayed, their corpses are going to be hung. That's guilt that not too many people can bear. Because remember, Sung Gi-yeon has a soft heart. He wants to do the right thing. He wanted justice. He wanted to end the games and spare people. So keeping him alive makes his pain more intense. Whereas, like the crazy witch shaman lady later on in the other episode, when she's in hide and seek, she pushes the people following her outside the door and closes it and saves herself. So she was fine with everyone dying so she could live. So the front man knows there's players who are fine with sacrificing their comrades so that they can live. Whereas Sung Gi-yeon, he feels the opposite. He wanted to make it with everyone or die with them. Right? He was in it to win it, and that didn't happen. And him being spared and not the others, this troubles him. Whereas with another deviant player, they've been like, yeah, at least I'm alive. Screw them. So the front man knows that this is going to weigh more on Sung Gi-yeon's conscience. So make him live and make him suffer more. But let's also see how he now interacts with the game. And the front man learned, his own weakness in terms of what was possible for players to do back to the soldiers. How far could they get, the logistics, and how to prevent that in the future. So he got something from Sung Gi-yeon, which is quite interesting when you look at it. Now, one sting in particular that I thought was really unique was that the old billionaire, who's in so much debt, really rubbed it in Sung Gi-yeon's face that because he got all those exes killed, this helped the O's be able to win the democratic vote of staying. Had he not led that rebellion, there would have been more of a fighting chance for the exes to get out. So he actually doomed people to stay by his actions. And then they give him a round of applause. And then, if you recall how the front man told Sung Gi-yeon, to witness the consequences of his little game, his little actions. Well, Sung Gi-yeon saw that. He saw that he made it harder for the exes to win. He lost the trust of everyone, and he's being chided and jided by everyone there, pretty much. Very, except for some of the nice people who knew his intentions, the trans, the old lady, and her son. That's pretty much it. That's all he has left on his side. Everyone who believed in him, other than that, is pretty much done. Okay? Brutal pill to swallow, I must say. Now, Player 44, the shaman witch, says it was the vengeful souls that dragged Sung-gyun back to the games, and she tells him he will hear their screams until the day he dies. Then she laughs in his face and he grabs her throat. Now, this shaman, witch, religious, pagan woman, is quite cruel, and her face is perfect for that character, because she really brings about that energy. She's bonkers, no doubt, but she's able to play the part of that cruelty and wickedness pretty well, especially with that dark raccoon eyeliner. And she's sort of really rubbing in the sting, putting salt in that wound. So already Sung-gyun has been chastised by the O's, and now he's being tormented by this wicked witch there as well. So he's got the mockery coming from different expressions, from the male side and from the female side. From the pure materialistic side, because remember, the billionaire, he's only thinking about cash money, you know, he wants money, money, money. But then he gets chastised from the spiritual side, right? Even though Sung-gyun, I don't believe, is an adherent to whatever weird religion she is, Buddhist or whatever, where she was, or whatever pagan weird stuff. But the point was, is he got chastised by a materialist who looks at just numbers and cash money, and one who sees herself as like a guru, a spiritual guru. So that's obviously going to weigh on his soul quite heavily. Now, player 333 gives 222 his sweet potato. It looks like a sweet potato. I don't know if it's a regular one, because some sweet potatoes can be white, but munching on an Idaho potato, it's not going to be very good without ketchup. Sweet potatoes, you can kind of just eat it because it's sweet. So he gives her his and says, I know it's your fave. So in the beginning, we think to ourselves, oh, he's being nice. This is before the baby is born. This is before the baby is now competing for the money. Keep that in mind. And you can see her kind of get soft for a second, which later on you can see that fades for a good reason. Now the old lady and her son and the trans, they really try to give Sung-gyun a pep talk, and you can see their kind of good heart towards him. And Hyun-ju is the trans, and the trans has a lot of regret. Oh, why didn't I do more to get the ammo to you? And then the son of the old lady mentions how it was Daeho's fault. That's funny, a name. Daeho. He got cold feet. He had a panic attack, and he was a pure coward, and it's his fault, actually. And so this reinvigorates Sung-gyun, because now, oh, it's not just my fault. There's someone else who I can lay part of the burden on their shoulders, and realize that maybe my plan wasn't as dumb, but it just had a faulty person participating who wasn't about that life and shouldn't have been depended on in the first place, right? So that alleviates some of his guilt and makes him feel that what if energy. We all know how potent that can be in our lives, that what if. Now, Sung-gyun stares at Daeho as he's eating in his bed, and he doesn't finish his food, and he's kind of just glaring at him. Daeho is player number 388. And they try to make Sung-gyun as this tough guy, but I see him as more of a weakling. And even back in season 1, where he has his hair red like a lesbian, like a feminist lesbian, he's getting on the plane, I was like, what's going on here? He's more soft. So when he's in the moment of sacrificing his life for the baby at the final game, you know, he falls off that pillar. That's who he is. when we see him hesitate to shank the other players while they're sleeping in their beds. That's a good example of who he is. When the front man reveals his face to Sung-Gyun and he realizes that he was playing next to and bonding with his enemy the entire time but doesn't do anything, that's who he is. But when he's trying to be like spooky, tough, assassin and avenger, it doesn't really mesh. And he's just not that kind of a character. And even when they wanted, even making him want to go for revenge, I thought was just a very stupid story arc. Gonna go back, win the games, and lead a rebellion. He's not a revolutionary. None whatsoever. So I didn't really think that there was a good scene choice to just have him staring at Daeho. Because it took him forever to actually have any type of interaction with Daeho. And Daeho's fear and willingness to try to escape was stronger, in my opinion, than Sung-Gyun's desire to eliminate him. This was a very awkward scene. Now, Sung-Gyun being in that sunken, sulking, brooding state was a bit off. Like, I get they want him to be dejected, but at the same time, you're like, you're not going to eat and have water, and you're going to have the strength to compete with the games? We're getting a little bit unrealistic here. Now, the fourth game, you draw a ball from this bubblegum looking machine, and there's blue and pink balls. I had a little bubblegum machine like that in my room as a kid, but I didn't have to put a quarter or anything. And those old-fashioned bubblegum machines are often in kids' areas. You don't see them a lot anymore, and they're kind of choking hazards, so, you know, I don't really think it's a good idea for kids to have that. If you want to give them gum, give them a stick, not the ball. You know, kids at a certain age shouldn't be eating that. So I thought that was kind of a stupid thing to include. But I get that the Squid Game includes the kid theme, playground, colors, you know, but it just seemed like it had nothing to do with bubblegum, but I guess they wanted it to be random. But then you're allowed to switch. So what was the point of it even being random if you can switch vests with someone who agrees? Very dumb design. It was retarded, honestly. Now in season 2, when they're in that room that goes around, like you have to run to this one to that room, go in, close the door. There's a time limit. There can only be a certain amount of people in the room. When you see it, you're like, oh, okay, this is intense. And there's a merry-go-round. That was a good one. That was actually surprising you couldn't see it. The ball with the pink and blue, it wasn't girls versus boys, as it might have looked like that. A bit retarded, honestly. I didn't think that was a good stage design or insert into the game at all. Now, the game is hide and seek. And the players on the blue team must either find the exit and escape within 30 minutes or stay hidden to avoid being caught by members of the red team. Now, what's kind of dumb about the design, it's a low roof maze, right? There's corridors. You can only hide in a room. If they really wanted to make it interesting, it should have been more of a habitat, where there's more nooks and crannies to hide, you know, where you can climb up, or you can go down into a hole, or you can, you know, make it actually more entertaining. Because when you play hide and seek, you don't play it within a stupid concrete maze. You play it outside, and you actually have like a jungle gym to hide, a tree. I mean, do these maybe in South Korea they play hide and seek inside, but when I played hide and seek as a kid, there was always somewhere you could hide, behind a car, under a car. Like, it was way more. You actually had to hide. Even when you play in someone's house, there's the closet. You know, you stand inside the bathroom, but there's like a curtain. You know, you have more fun with it. The design was quite stupid, and those ugly blue with the stars with the blue uniforms is too much blue. It was just poorly done. It wasn't creepy. It wasn't creepy enough. See, with the red light, green light of season 1, episode 1, we didn't know what that doll was going to do. It hints to Chucky, right? It hints to a doll that's supposed to be adorable actually is a killing machine. And the stage that they had was just lacking creativity, just poorly done, poorly done. The players on the red team, the Seekers, they must kill the Hiders. Within 30 minutes, each red team Seeker player must find and kill a player on the blue team. Those who fail to kill a player will be killed themselves. That's a good twist. So, the blue team, you have to hide, you have to find the exit, you got the keys. Now the keys are either circular, triangular, or square. The exit, you need all three. So this was a nice twist because it meant that you needed a person from each one of those to either survive, or someone had to realize the need to collect the keys. And this takes a lot of, it's a twist that they were not told of before. And so, when we see our little trio of player 222, the old lady, and the trans coming together, they had a teamwork unit from the get-go, which was what they needed in that circumstance. Now, you would think when you play hide and seek, you don't ever play as a team, as a group, you play individually. So that was a unique twist on the game itself, because that kids game, you don't hide with your friend because then you stick out. You don't have space. You know, you're more likely to be busted. You gotta go by yourself. But they switched it up with keys unlocking doors, and then once you unlock a door, you are, you know, you're making it so that that door can't be locked again. Once you unlock it, that is it for that door. Now, the red team, which it's really pink, so they couldn't even get, it's like a hot pink, like reddish, it's like ridiculous. If it's gonna be red, make it red. But they call it that. They have a more of a, okay, if I don't find this person, I'll be killed. And remember, the red team players are not allowed to kill each other. And that means that each one has to get one person. It's going to be hard because some people are going to escape, so it makes the game more interesting. When there's life and death going on, now it's balls to the wall. So, not losing keys and collecting keys is really important. And the exit needing all three is quite a twist, isn't it? Now, the red team, they get some knives, and they look really stupid. They're pink and turquoise. They don't even, the handle is like, okay, I know we're having the kid theme here, but the dagger looks like something a Power Ranger would wear. It's just stupid. Like, make the dagger at least look kind of cool. I get they want to have like poppy pink, you know, they want to make the decorations look like a kindergarten class did it. They want to make the stage look like it's a preschool or first grade corridor of a school. It's just too on the nose. There needs to be more creepiness to it. There needs to be more of a contrast. So the knives, I thought, looked retarded. They look dingy, plastic. They look terrible to handle. It's just too funky for me. And the dagger that the front man gives Sung-gyun to go slice and dice the people while they sleep after they gorge themselves on that fancy feast, that dagger actually looks really cool. So I think that they could have done a better job with the design of the weapons. Now, some people get to swap, some people don't. Daeho wanted to swap, but nobody wanted to swap with him. Now, the character Min-soo is the wimpy guy, and I think I've never really hated a character as much as him, because he has no purpose. He is so wimpy, such a loser, such a coward, that I was like, why did he even make it this long? Who wrote this character into the story? He had no purpose at all. Nothing important happened to him. And it was like jarring to even see that character last until the end. Just a total wimp. And just how he was dominated by the junkies and watched the girl who was kind to him get shanked, and he never became courageous, and he started using drugs, and he still was a coward even with the drugs. You're like, this character is really dumb. So whoever wrote that character should slap themselves. Min-Soo, man. Ugh, I hated him. Now, player 333 and 222, she is pregnant still at this time, and he asks her to swap vests and tells her she isn't a murderer, and she really realizes that it's easy for him to kill someone, and he says yes. So this is where we see a stark contrast of their personalities. They have a really love-hate relationship, and she really did pick quite a bad guy, and she is there because he convinced her to invest in a cryptocurrency called Dalmatian, and she lost money, and she's an orphan, she doesn't have really a family, and she's pregnant, and he wouldn't answer her calls, so she's in there to earn money for her and her child. So she's in this life and death situation because of him, and he got her pregnant and just really didn't care. But at that time, he didn't know she was pregnant, but he just kind of hit it and quit it, and she let herself get used and cream pied by a guy who didn't even want to be with her. So she's stupid herself. Quite dumb. But she loves her child. She says she'd do anything to keep her baby safe. Well, imagine if she would have thought of that before she opened her legs to him. Right? Now, your kid, you're pregnant, and you're in a life and death game because you let some guy get the goods before marrying you up. Okay? And he had cash money at that time. So, was she just a little groupie? A little thought? Maybe. And she trusted him for financial advice, and what money she had, she lost it. So she's, not only is she stupid to let some guy who she's not going to marry finish inside her, but she took advice, financial advice from him as well. Really quite dumb. So he tells her to kill him in there. And he tells her to stab him so that they both get to live before the baby's born, right? So he's trying to be the hero at this point. And she believes it. She wants to keep the baby safe. He says, well, kill me instead. So this original dialogue in episode 1 compared to the final scene where he clearly, once the child is born, it's very dubious. You know, there's like a teeter-totter type of effect going on. Does he care about the kid? Does he not? He didn't really act like he cared about the kid too much when it was born. He hid it, and what's going on here? And when we look at Sung-Gi-Yoon sacrificing his life for the baby, we can now, I believe, come to the conclusion that player 333 would not have done that. No. And I believe Sung-Gi-Yoon as well made that quite clear to him. Quite clear. The old lady, player 149, Jang Gyeom, she has a soft spot clearly for the pregnant girl, and she was a midwife, I believe she said in season 2. And it shows that she has a very kind, heart, and she has a dialogue with her son where we see she was beaten by her husband, so she has a sort of toughness to her, and she carries a little shank in her hair, which is pretty badass. So I like seeing their bonding during the whole season 2 and season 3. Daeho, player 388, is clearly nervous, and when he kind of gets close to Sungyeon, there's lots of blaming happens between Daeho and Sungyeon. And blame, this whole idea of whose fault is it? When we are measuring our deeds and actions, we want to know who led to who, what led to what, the order of things. This actually offers us a lot of closure. This is why accountability matters. They say, in a funny way, accountability is a woman's kryptonite. When she has to actually admit it was her fault, where she can't scapegoat men all the time. It's your fault, your fault, your fault, your fault. Like women, unfortunately, some of them really enjoy putting, no, it's you, it's never me. They can't. It's too hard for someone to just look in that mirror and say, it is my fault. I did this action, this is the consequences. It's like we grasp to always blame someone else. So that whole struggle session with Daeho and Sungyeon about blame, it's a potent one. And you see it come up in episode 1 quite extensively with how at first Sungyeon is self-loathing. But then once he realizes Daeho's cowardice, all of a sudden he's invigorated and has a penetrative stare. Now, Young-sik is the son, player 7, of the old lady 149 Jang-gyum. They have a very unique relationship. And you can see that she does care for her son. And she has her little hairpin. She's gonna get ready to shank someone. And she kind of knows her son is a bit of a coward, though. So, we get a little bit of foreshadowing there. Now, the blue team only has 2 minutes to hide. That's pretty short. Pretty short. You know, you're like, so they want to instill the panic from the get-go, which makes sense. That timer plays a huge role. Huge role. Now, the maze arena, as I mentioned, is poorly designed. The stupid yellow stars, low roof. I mean, the maze, the garden maze in The Shining was done pretty well because it's tall hedges. And in the Goblet of Fire of Harry Potter, the tall maze, that's more spooky, you know? So there's hedges, mazes, but this one's made of concrete, so it could have just been more well designed. The rooms themselves, they got like the butterfly hands that kids do, like with you put their hands in paint and then they stick it on the wall. I was just like, no, this is not really well done. I would have done something different. It has to be a very unique way of presenting something, because it looks too similar to classrooms. Like with America, we have a lot of school shooters, and there's something super creepy about having people run around getting shanked in something that looks like a school. You know, it's too on the nose of a kid's school, especially with how many children have suffered. There was a trans terrorist who went and shot up a Christian school. And so, maybe that was their intention, but I still think they could have done the scene, stage, arena a little less on the nose and more creative in a sense, right? You know, it just also looked like in the Mormon temples, not the temples, wards, what do they call them? The Mormons have like certain types of buildings where the temples that are bigger, but they have smaller ones in the neighborhood communities. And I remember the one I went to in Utah. They have like a brick like that, cement, but it's painted white. And it had that kind of a feel to it, where it's like you don't know which hallway you're gonna go down and can get lost real easy. And it just didn't mesh, man. I was not impressed. It kind of seemed shoddy, you know. Now, the song that plays is Hide, Hide, It's Time to Play Don't let your hair clothes give you away. And then it goes like with toe, hair, clothes. Hide, hide. It's time to play. Don't let your hair give you away. It's not a creepy song. No. It has a little bit of a flow to it, but it should have been more like, hide, hide, like it could have been more Chucky-esque, you know. It just, I think they really flopped with their, like they needed a little bit more perniciousness, a little bit more like, because part of like the voices of player 244 eliminated. This is like a professional female corporate sound that just literally describes somebody dying in a brutal way. There's a contrast there that matches really well. That it has more of like like the fact that the soldiers wear pink but they're heartless. You see what I'm saying? Like that's a good like what? It's like does something to your brain. And the fact that they have symbols on their, like, the triangle, square, and, like, they have circles, and you're like, what is that, what is that circle? X? Makes you think of the PlayStation controller buttons. It does something, right? So I thought that song was not spooky enough. Like, when, in Season 2, when they're going to the rooms and there's that merry-go-round, do-do-do-do-do-do, do-do-do-do-do-do. That one matched. Like the bounciness, it was like a happy thing that you would actually hear at a carnival. You know? This one tried to be foreboding and looming. Didn't vibe. Didn't vibe at all. Was not impressed. Now, Junhee starts to feel the onsets of labor. And we got a hint at like, uh-oh. The trans, number 120, Cho Hyun-ju, goes to Junhee and offers teamwork, as I said. The old lady Jang Gyeom, 149, joins them. And Song Gyun has a serious stare and says it's all your fault again. He's going through like a trance. And that's the end of episode 1. What happens here? So we get introduced to the game. The 4th game. We see them, how they're separated. We see they're able to switch sides. The stupid dagger, the dumb stage, the song doesn't match. The only interesting part, really, is that the red team, if they don't shank someone, they will be eliminated themselves. That was a nice twist. The keys on the exit, the fact that you need one of each shape, nice twist. Them having to have keys in general is clever because panicking and not being able to open a door, and then even the holes of the doorknob, like where you put the key in, the key fobs, whatever, being different shapes, clever. Reminds me of in season 1 when you get those cookie shapes. You got to be able to cut out the cookie shapes. It's nice when you don't know what's coming, but the entire, the song, the scenery, the color choice, the dagger design, garbage. It's just garbage. It looked like something you'd see at like a carnival. I was not impressed at all. And so, we are introduced to the long-awaited Season 3. I would give it 2 stars out of 5, to be quite honest. The first season is like fantastic. You don't know what's coming. But I feel like these writers, they kind of fell off, to be quite honest with you. And remember, player 333 Lee Myung and player 222 Kim Jung-hee, they are really a main component in this season. Like their whole arc, and we get to kind of see how he shifts overall. And it's called Keys and Knives, the episode. What's gonna save you, the knife or the key? And okay. It's not very impressive. Okay. So the soldier 11 helping out 246, and the soldier 11 asking to see the operating room so she can help player 246 escape. We have a nice little contrast going on between them, and Sung Gyun's mental struggle, the crazy shaman lady, the people voting aspect is still in there. Obviously, they wouldn't get rid of that, but Sung Gyun's dejectedness can get kind of unnerving. So, 1 minute he's bold and brave and focused, the next minute he's self-hating. He's kind of all over the place, right? But we do see the billionaire still being the older man is being ridiculous, but at this stage, the VIPs are definitely being entertained by Sung Gi-yeon's behavior. Okay? So, let me know what you think. Maybe you liked it. We'll get into episode 2 next time, inshallah. But, I expected more of a banger for episode 1, to be honest. Yeah. But that's just me. This didn't need to be... season 3 should have been a season 2. You made us wait. We didn't wait too long, but why did you make us wait at all? This is stupid. So please like, comment, subscribe, share, join the blog, and don't answer any strange card requests with a triangle, square, circle.